Hi, my name's Mick. I'd like to take 10 minutes to talk about something called Yin Yoga. And Yin Yoga is a really nice form of yoga. And I was lucky enough to get back from Canada before the virus kicked in and I was stuck abroad. I've been trained by a wonderful teacher called Bernie Clark, who is the author of a range of books on Yin Yoga and one of the key founders of some of the underlying ideas and philosophies and postures behind it. Before I talk about that, I just want to touch on the idea of what is yoga for anyone who's not actually been involved with it at all. And yoga is an important part of that triad of maintaining your cardio speed, of maintaining your strength and maintaining the body's stretch. And that's the important three parts of wellness that we all need to pay attention to as we get older. And now, yoga, when you look online, there's lots of strange poses and very skinny people doing weird things and could be quite off-putting. And when I first saw yoga, I was put off by it. I found it really hard and just couldn't get into it. And it took me a long while. And you would see people doing a very traditional pose, maybe the tree. Okay, so you go, they're doing that. And you go, okay, what is the point of that? Who on earth walks around or spends their day like that? And then I suddenly understood the point of yoga. And the point of yoga is not about standing in silly postures. Because one day I was taking my trousers off and I realised, okay, so I was taking them off and I went like that. And all of a sudden I'm in tree posture. And the point of yoga is it helps to create a strong and supple body. And so as when you're doing these things like taking your trousers off, bending down to pick up the dog poo, emptying the dishwasher, turning around in the car to shout at the kids, the body has the flexibility and the mobility and the stability to be able to do these things without too many aches and pains. And certainly for me, since I've started doing yoga, I don't ache in the morning. I do feel more flexible. And so yoga is an incredible part of that mix of maintaining the cardio speed, the strength of the body, and also the stretch, so there's openness. So what does Yin do? What does Yin focus on? If you've done normal yoga, you'll be aware that it can be quite intense. So you go into poses that can be quite hard, and I certainly found it off-putting and I ran away from it for a while. Yin is very different. If you take the normal body, and that was the pose I was effectively just in the tree pose. Yin looks at the body from the point of these key joints. You've got the ankle joint, the knee joint, you've got the pelvis, you've got the spine, you've got the shoulders, you've got the elbow, and you've got the wrists. And everything we do, whether it's emptying the dishwasher, whether it's cleaning the car, whether it's playing guitar or anything, is a combination of two things within this body. It's mobility and stability. And mobility is the freedom, so we've got range of movement within that joint to go to its full extent. And stability is that when you're within that range, that actually when you get to a position, that you can stay there. And so a range of movement is that in doing the dishwasher in the morning, do I have the flexibility to be able to bend over without aches and pains? But also when I'm down there, is there sufficient strength in my core to not damage it? Because far too many people go into positions and damage them. And this stability and mobility is quite critical. And it's based on the idea the body is made up of a number of complex parts, and our movement comes from the interrelationship between these. We have our muscles, we have our joints, and we also have this thing called connective tissue, which is a fascia that wraps around the body. And only in recent years has it become understood as something significant. The problem is, if we don't, as we get older, we get into routines. We have very regulated patterns of movement, and when we try and move in a different way, it hurts or it aches. And what happens is, and I'm sure many of you in the garden have got an old hose somewhere, and you pick that hose up, and it gets kinks, and it gets locked in, and it's dried out, and that's effectively what happens to our body. if we sit the same way, if we slouch the same way, if we don't create variety in our body, then we get locked into patterns. And when we try and do something different, that's when it hurts. So if you're not used to having that range of movement within the spine, the day you do turn around to shout at the kids is when you go, ah! And that's when the pain kicks in. Because our ligaments and our connective tissue should be like a new tube. It should be flexible, it should be hydrated. And what yin does, it starts to work on this connective tissue to open it up again, to get that mobility. Now, on one hand, traditional yoga, which may be like Ashtanga, which might be hot yoga, this type of thing, is incredibly powerful, but that's more of a yang style. It's very muscular, it's very energetic. The danger with that is, if I start applying that muscular tension to something like this, it just rips and tears and damages it. And this is akin to, if you take a piece of wood and you try and bend it, and you just throw into it, then it's going to break. But I'm sure around your home, many of you got some laminated wood, which is a bent wood, and you bend wood like this over time. You do two things. You have a tension you apply to it, and you just let it sit for time. And the whole principle of yin yoga is that it's about time. In the same way as if you've had your teeth corrected, or children have had their teeth corrected, the dentist doesn't go in with pliers, they put braces on, and they just give it time, because that's connected, the bone is connective tissue. Over time you adjust and move. And so what yin is doing is applying tension to these points, it's applying pressure. And within the connective tissue we have things called fibroblasts, which are processes that generate new connective tissue cell. And by applying this pressure, we create new cells, and we start to open it, and we start to create mobility, and we get back to that hydrated open joint. The aim being to get full range of movement, or as close as we can to full range of movement in all of these joints. And so where yin operates is, unlike Ashtanga, hot yoga, or whatever yoga you might be doing, where you have a 5 breath count, within yin it's a much longer, so you'll go anything between 3 to 15 minutes, but there's no pain, there's no stress, it shouldn't ache, it shouldn't hurt. All you do is you go into the pose and you hold, so if I was doing like a spinal rotation, I would, because the spine has got amazing capacity to rotate, but we don't often do that. So I would be going like that, and I'd go to that first point, I'd go what's called the edge, and I don't force it and I don't hurt it. Then after 2 or 3 minutes, what I will find is that edge moves, and I can start to come around further, and then after a while, but again I'm not pushing it, there's no pain here, and you just sit there for 3, 4, 5 minutes, and then you turn. And if you do that every day, what happens is the body opens out, the hose becomes more hydrated, it becomes more flexible, and your body gets looser. And that's all yin is. It's incredibly simple. You will go, within a single session, you will have, most have maybe 10 postures. It looks terribly boring. I've tried watching yin on YouTube, and it looks as boring as paint drying. But in the same way as if I watch cricket, it bores me, but it's because I don't understand what's going on behind the cricket process. And now I understand yin and what sits behind it. It's an incredibly powerful process. It helps you to ensure you have that range of motion. It helps you to ensure that you can move around the house. And it helps me, the point for me is that I don't want to get old and fall over. 46% of falls are in the home. They're not on stairs, they're not on stalls, they're not in the bathroom, they're on plain floors. And people fall because they don't have that stability and mobility in these key joints. And what an investment in yoga does is to regain that range of motion, is to give that full mobility, is to give the stability. And it's an incredibly powerful, simple, fun process that is, I guess, maybe effortless. And it's a really, really nice way to do yoga. And the whole idea being, as a stretch process, it works in harmony with the strength process if you're building muscle up, and it also works in harmony if you're doing the speed process of building your cardio up. It's an integral and important part of those three things: the cardio speed, the body strength, and the stretch. So if you're interested in yin yoga, then let me know. I can highly commend it. Please drop me a line if you've got any questions. Thank you.